going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be going over The Last of Us Season 2. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo, and as I talk about a movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you have come to the right place. And like I said, today we're talking about Last of Us Season 2, excuse me. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Now let me start off by saying that I am a huge Last of Us fan. I have played both video games, and I absolutely also very much enjoyed the first season of the show. Part two of the video game series is a little bit more controversial, just like this season as well is going to be. I do very much enjoy what the part two of the video game series did, and I enjoy a lot of things of what this season does as well. But there are, of course, some mix-ups that I don't think worked quite as well as the showrunners were thinking they were going to be translated. Now, I am going to do this a little bit different. Typically, when you see me do a review, I always go into my pros first and then my cons, and I give you somewhat of my final thoughts towards the end. I'm going to try to go kind of episode by episode, give you my pros and cons kind of all mixed in and jumbled in all together, just because I don't want to be jumping around back and forth when I'm talking about pros and there's something that's a pro in the finale and or there's a con in episode one and it gets all mixed up and confusing. I think it'll be a little bit easier just go episode by episode, give you my quick thoughts on each individual episode, what I thought worked, what I thought didn't work, kind of go a little bit over what happened in that episode, and yeah, just give you over my overall thoughts about what I thought about the season overall. Now, this is going to be also a spoiler review. I won't be doing a spoiler free review because at this point it's been about 7 weeks. And for the most part, everyone that likes the show most likely has seen it already. But if you haven't seen the show, you are obviously, of course, more than welcome to stay and hear my thoughts about it. But you will be hearing spoilers throughout this entire review. But if you don't want to hear any spoilers, I highly recommend still go watching it. I do think this is still a must watch season for sure for the show. Alrighty, now that we got all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started off with the season opener. Now, the season opener takes place about 5 years after the events of season one, and also about 5 years after the events of part one of the video game series as well, where we are catching up with Ellie and Joel in Jackson. And this episode does a lot of good things. You reintroduce ourselves into the world. We reintroduce ourselves into the character. We're kind of like in this middle of a bad blood type of relationship between Ellie and Joel, which video game fans know the reason why. But if you are just a fan of the show, you might not know why. And of course, that gets revealed a little bit later on, which we'll talk about. But you do get a little bit more reintroduction to this life that they've been living for the past 5 years, where they're in this little city. They're trying to rebuild a home. They have a big community. There's family there, loved ones and everything like that. But you just have that little bit of turmoil between Ellie and Joel. And I think this first episode does a lot of things great. The set design is great. Acting is great. I think direction is great. But the number one thing that holds this episode back is that it's such a slow opener to the season. We've been waiting 2 years at this point. Once the season one comes out, we've been waiting 2 years, and we get a 40 minute, like about 50 minute or so episode that is just really reintroducing characters to us and showing us some sequences that happen in the video game, like the New Year's Eve party, and the dance between Dina and Ellie, and that whole issue that happens with Joel trying to help out and kind of get into her business. She gets a little upset with him and things like that. So we get a lot of great sequences of acting and emotion and drama, but it just ends up being a very slow episode. And I just remember, seeing that episode for the first time when the show premiered, the season two premiered, and finishing the episode, and I just go, well, nothing really happened. That was kind of a disappointment, you know? And then we follow up that episode with episode two, which is the big one, right? This is the episode. Again, spoiler warning, this is the episode, video game players know, where Joel dies, where we have Abby finally discovering Jackson, coming upon Jackson and bumping into Joel seemingly by accident, and she realizes who she just bumped into, who saved her life from the horde of zombies that are attacking Jackson and kind of were in her crosshairs. And she takes him up to the cabin that they've been hiding out up in the mountain, and we get that infamous scene where Joel is literally getting beaten to death. Abby is monologuing about what he did, who she killed, and Ellie comes in and is pinned down and is watching her father figure essentially being beaten to death right in front of her. And I thought that was just so fantastic. I think Ellie did an amazing job. I think Abby did an amazing job. I think Joel did an amazing job. Everybody in this sequence did such an amazing job. And while all this is happening, you have the siege on Jackson with the ginormous horde of infected and Tommy trying to protect everybody. So there's so much happening in this episode. But again, this second episode where there's so much happening, so much emotion and death and action and explosions and infected and a siege on Jackson, it ends up being a shorter episode than the opener. Why not combine both of them? Why not make a hour and a half, 2 hour long opener? Because that would have just hit so much harder, because episode two is one of the best episodes of the entire show, not just the season, the entire show, and is one of the best episodes of TV history. You know, and there's so much thing going on also, like with Ellie, people saying that she should have been recasted, blah blah blah. I think she did fantastic in these two first openers. Even though episode one wasn't that all exciting and not much really happened, I think she did absolutely amazing in all of this stuff. I never for a moment felt like she wasn't doing what she was supposed to do with this character. I never felt like she wasn't capable enough to do this character. And for all the hate that she got throughout this entire season, I felt like none of it was really deserved. I think there should have been so much more praise for her, because she absolutely killed it this entire season and this entire show. But yeah, again, you have season two, or excuse me, episode two, that is just one of the craziest episodes, and that should have been the opener. And that's probably my biggest gripe with episode two, is that it was such a hard hit. It could have meshed in with episode one, and it would have been such a better opener to the season. And I don't think there's really any episode in this entire season that's necessarily bad. I think they're all decent to amazing. And episode one was decent because it just was a very soft opener. Good emotion, good drama, but not exciting. And episode two had everything: the drama, the emotion, the excitement, the tear jerkers of Joel's death. That is such a big portion of the video game that I felt like they did so well. They adapted this game so well. It was one of the best video game adaptations of all time. But then all that happens, and again, it's a great episode. And then we go to episode three, and episode three baffles me, because in the game, you have Tommy that finds out, and he goes on a rage-filled revenge up to Seattle, and he starts killing the wolves and stuff like that on his own. And us as Ellie in the game are following his tracks, right? And then you have episode three that follows a few months, I think it's 3 months after Joel's death, because has woken up in the hospital, and she's been hospitalized, and she thinks that everybody's already gone to follow, or Dina told her that we don't know who they are or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. And she talks to Tommy. Well, before she talks to Tommy, she goes back to Joel's home, and she has a very great emotional moment when she goes to Joel's closet, and she smells like one of his flannels or sweaters. And it's a great emotional sequence. And then you have Dina coming in, and you have a great moment between them two, where she tells Ellie that, actually, I lied to you this whole time. I know who they are. I know where they're going. I know where they came from. I know their names. I know what they look like. And Ellie, I mean, rightfully so to a certain extent, has a bad reaction to that, of like, why the fuck did you not tell me? We could have been months ahead of it. And Dina, being probably my favorite character of this entire season, gives a reality check like, what does it matter if we were months ahead? We know where they're going. Let's just go where they're going. Why would we follow them through the wilderness if we already know what their endpoint is? We know they're going to Seattle. So whether we started 3 months ago or not, they're going to be in Seattle regardless. And I love that Dina had those moments throughout this entire show. She had those moments of being Ellie's reality check, being Ellie's rock, essentially. And I think Isabella Merced did a fantastic job with Dina. And as a side note, I think the showrunners did an amazing job with giving Dina a little bit more of a like main role in this show, where she has like a great friendship with Joel. She has a great relationship with Ellie. You have a little bit more drama that centers around her that I really enjoy. We get a little bit more of her backstory and stuff like that. So I think Dina's character as a whole was fleshed out very, very great, more so than she was in the video game. And I think Dina in the show is actually a much better character than she was in the video game. So I absolutely loved what they did with Dina. But with that being said, after they have that little conversation, she goes to Tommy thinking that he would have been, months ahead of her and she had to catch up. And Tommy is just like, well, I mean, they came into our home, they killed Joel, but what are we going to do? There's not much more we can do. Jackson is still rebuilding after the invasion of that horde. What do you want us to do, Ellie? And so she sets up a meeting with the town, and basically is a town vote or a council vote. And the town has, you know, different people speaking up on the matter of should they go to Seattle or not. And again, this just felt like another filler episode. Like I felt like this episode could have been attached to episode 4, which we'll get into in a little bit, where episode 4 is day 1 of Seattle. So again, where episode 1 and 2 could have been meshed together, I think episode 3 and 4 could have been meshed together. They spend so much time showing us the behind the scenes at the end of every episode versus just giving us more context in the actual episode itself. Every one of these episodes, especially for a 7 episode season, every one of these episodes should have been an hour and a half long, minimum, I think. But we didn't get that, unfortunately. But going into that, you have a filler episode, essentially just Ellie trying to figure out who's going to go with her to Seattle. Dina obviously goes with her. And then we kick off with episode 4, where they're in Seattle. And again, this was just an amazing episode. You have the underground subway sequence with the giant horde and the whole moment of Ellie getting bitten right in front of Dina and exposing that she is immune to the infection and having all that with Dina. And then Ellie finding out that Dina's pregnant. And again, this episode was just so jam-packed with action, with emotion, great acting, amazing sequences that are capturing what the video game did. And they did so many different little things so well. But again, it just felt a little too short. It felt a little rushed. This was an amazing episode, don't get me wrong. But then this could have been meshed in with episode 3. Episode 3 should have been a 20-minute sequence in this episode 4 part, in my opinion. And this is one of those episodes where I thought the set design was just so vast and amazing. Like the underground subway sequence, the set design looked amazing, straight out of the video game. You have the theater that looks straight out of the video game. They did a fantastic job with the set design, and we're in a era where shows have just as high as a production value as movies. So I mean, it's understandable when we get 6, 7, 8 episode shows, but at the same time, it sucks. Where you have a huge story to tell in such a little amount of time, and especially in a season where we're 4 episodes in, and if we compare it to where you are in the video game, you're a couple of hours into like a 20-hour video game by episode 4. We're over halfway done with the season, and we haven't even scratched the surface of the video game and everything that happens in the video game. And this is where you start getting a little worried. And I forget, so somewhere in this episode 3 and 4, I think is when we get introduced to the Seraphites or the Scars. And again, something else where they kind of feel like they do something a little odd, where they make the scars seem like the vulnerable people against the wolves, and that gets justified a little bit later when we see how sinister they can be as well. But again, they did so many things out of sequence, had so many moments out of sequence, which when you're watching the show week by week, it makes it a little bit more difficult to really understand what they're trying to do and the direction that they're trying to take and the creative liberties that they're trying to take with the show. Where if you had the full season, day one, it would all make more sense. It wouldn't be as frustrating. And I think that part of it is why these episodes become frustrating and they feel slow and like filler, because when you have a like episode 3, for example, that all the entire episode really all it is trying to figure out who's going to go with Ellie to Seattle, and then now you have to wait a week to see her go to Seattle with Dina. It's kind of frustrating. But if we had the whole show up front, I think it would have worked. And now that we do have the whole show up front, it does work a little bit better in terms of pacing, because you don't have to wait a whole week for the next episode. But even so, even with that in context, I do think there were some wasted episodes of just being a filler or a in between episode type of case, which I don't think really made sense to tell such a vast story from The Last of Us Part 2. And then going beyond that, see, this is where I can't really remember too much what happens. Oh, yes. I have the list of episodes right here, and I'm trying to remember what I watched because it's been a while. So I'm trying to remember that I got all my facts straight. But we have episode 5. And episode 5 is another great episode. I think episode 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 was a great run, because after 4 you have such an intense moments with Ellie getting bit, Dina finding out she's immune, Ellie finding out she's pregnant, having such an emotional moments with each other. And then we get into episode 5 where they're trying to figure out how to get to the hospital, and they run into these like smart zombies again, where they stalk them. I think they call them stalkers in the game. I can't remember off the top. I haven't played the game since release, but and you have such an intense moment where they're being surrounded by these infected that are extremely intelligent, and you have Ellie getting just surrounded in a horde of all these zombies. Dina running to the cage, they're running out of bullets. It seems like they're about to die, and then here comes why can't I think of his name right now? Here comes Jesse. I hope I'm remembering his name right at the moment. But here comes Jesse to the rescue and saves both Ellie and Dina, and he's upset, rightfully so, because he had to travel all the way to Seattle just to save them. And you have this little fun banter between them. It's very serious banter, but it's fun, where you have Ellie telling Jesse, like, we were just fine before you came, and he goes, until when? And then he's like, until you came, because they were literally about to die. Just because Ellie's immune doesn't mean she still can't get ripped apart, right? So it's a very fun moment. It's a very intense moment. And then from there, they go into the area where the scars are hiding out. And this is where the moment where you see how sinister they can be, where they hang up one of the wolves and literally just cut him right down the middle, and his guts spew out and stuff. And you see how sinister and evil they can get. And you have Jesse and Dina splitting from Ellie, and Ellie goes on and gets to the hospital, and she finds one of the persons that were there with Abby when they killed Joel. And again, you have an amazing moment, such a fantastic moment of acting from Ellie, where she's just yelling at this person, trying to figure out where Abby is, and she's just bashing her, essentially torturing her. The lights are all red, and they're underneath the elevator where the spores are at. So you have such a great set design, and just look again, set design where you have the fungus on the wall, and you have the people within the wall, and they're coughing out the airborne infection and stuff. Like, it looked amazing. Like, it looked absolutely incredible. The makeup design, the set design looked absolutely incredible. And again, you have that moment with Ellie just torturing this girl, trying to figure out where Abby is, and it is just such an amazing moment. And it cuts. And it cuts to a sequence with Joel coming into the room and just going, "Hey, kiddo." and it cuts to black. And from there, you could, for the most part, obviously see that the next episode is going to be an episode about Joel, which it is. You have a full episode of flashbacks, essentially, of Joel and Ellie. And in the video game, these flashbacks happen periodically throughout the entire runtime of the video game, where they just, in this one, they mashed it all together into one episode. And I think it worked. It worked very well because you see the progression of the relationship throughout the entire years. And it's basically a flashback of every single one of Ellie's birthdays. And you see the love that Joel has for Ellie. You see the love that Ellie has for Joel. But then you start seeing Ellie becoming a teenager. And I don't have any experience with having a kid that's a teenager or anything like that. But I've heard a lot of people that, had a very good emotional response to this because they've gone through that. But you have the moment of Ellie kind of transitioning into being an adult, and she doesn't feel like she needs Joel to babysit her all the time. And you start to see where that turmoil between them came through. And for a little bit, it got me worried that the whole reason why Ellie and Joel were mad at each other in the show, not the video game, was because Joel didn't let her get a tattoo or do drugs or be an adult. And I was worried that was going to be the reason that they were going to expose it for. And you get, again, another sequence that just is incredible, where you have Joel and Ellie going out for patrol for their first time, and they get to someone that was bitten and is going to be infected, and all he wants is just to go back and see his wife. And Joel does not allow that to happen. He ends up killing him, lying to Ellie, saying that he promises her that he will take him back, but he doesn't. And so you have that emotional sequence again, that it's a jaw-dropping moment when they get back to Jackson and they talk to the wife of the person that Joel killed. And the episode ends with one of the best endings ever, which is essentially the ending of the video game, where Ellie comes up to Joel and basically tells him, if you lie to me again, we're done. We're no longer having this relationship, but I have questions for you. What happened at the hospital with the Fireflies? And it is such a gut-wrenching, tear-jerking moment, seeing Joel literally pretty much break down as Ellie's asking him, is there really a cure that could have been done? Are there really more out there like me? Did you really kill everybody in that hospital? And Joel tells the truth, and you have that moment where it all goes full circle, and Ellie, it basically says, I don't think I can forgive you, but I want to try. And it is such an emotional moment that I absolutely love. Again, that is one of the best episodes of this entire show. It was absolutely fantastic. And then we catch up to episode 7. And I'm sorry if I'm going a little too fast between all of these episodes. I'll give you my overall thoughts at the end of this, but I kind of want to just give a little brief explanation of each episode. But we get to episode 7. We're catching back up after episode 5, where Ellie came back from the hospital after killing, essentially, the girl that was there with Abby when Joel was killed. And you get the moments of her and Jesse going out to try to find Tommy. She goes her own separate way because she wants to find Abby. She thinks that Abby's over at the aquarium. And this is where it felt a little weird. This was a very weird season finale. Because while this entire season has felt like they fleshed it out way too much, where all these in-between episodes were too slow just to go over things that doesn't really necessarily matter to the main plot, in episode 7, they just crunched it all down. And they went from, her and Jesse going to try to find Tommy, to going to a tower, to her going to try to find the aquarium, and then her going to the aquarium on boat. She gets stuck on the Scar Island, and within like 3 minutes, she gets captured by the Scars and escapes, all within 3 minutes. She leaves the island, goes to the aquarium, infiltrates the aquarium, has a moment with these 2 people. She kills these 2 people. Again, well, this moment was really gut-wrenching, where she kills someone by accident who is pregnant, and in that moment she feels in her head like this could have been Dina. She sees this pregnant woman. She did not want to kill her, and she just can only think about Dina and the baby and how this is so much more dangerous than she thought. And she starts to realize the bad person she's becoming. She's going into the dark hole, and she feels like she can't get out. So that moment was absolutely amazing as well. And again, more amazing acting from Bella Ramsey. But after that sequence, Tommy comes in, take her back to the theater, get out of the theater, and then you have the moment where Abby gets to the theater and Jesse dies, gets shot in the head and dies. And you have this moment that we see in the video game between Ellie and Abby, and it cuts to black, and it goes back to Seattle day one, and presumably season 3 is going to follow Abby. And there's been talk about a season 4 as well. So this season ends up being such a slow pace, opening 3-4 episodes, to being so compact in the last couple episodes, because I feel like even they were like, damn, we have a lot of ground to cover. We should probably pack it into a couple episodes. And the whole season ends up feeling slow but rushed. And that sucks, because when you have characters that you absolutely care about, great acting, amazing set design, literally feeling like you're part of the video game but in live action. This is again one of the best video game adaptations of all time. Season 1 was near perfect, if not a perfect season. You have season 2 that kind of feels like it's all over the place. It felt like they didn't know what direction they wanted to take it. They didn't know what they wanted to change. Things felt weird at times. Things felt really great and emotional and gut-wrenching at times. Things felt very slow, but then at moments they felt super rushed. And I can only imagine the drop-off of audience once season 3 comes out. And again, if we're going to wait an additional 2 years just to get season 3, you're going to see a huge drop-off in audience. And there's already a drop-off in audience from the beginning of the season till now. So it's something that it's a great season. I can't say that this season was bad, because it wasn't. It was a good season. I'm not saying great. It was a good season because it still has such amazing moments within it. But it could have been perfect if they just extended each episode, maybe keep it a little bit longer season. It could have been amazing. It could have been better than the first season if they just played their cards right. And I felt like they just didn't. So where you have a season that has, again, amazing acting, great set design, very emotional moments, you leave the final episode being kind of disappointed. As a video game fan, as just a show fan, people that never play the video games, you leave disappointed and you feel like you kind of got like duped. If it's one of those moments where it's like, this is the worst cliffhanger. Now what? Now I have to wait 2 years to see what's going to happen next. It ends up being disappointing, but good. And that's what sucks about it, because I enjoyed so many aspects of it. I found myself tearing up. I found myself loving moments, getting hyped up and tense with all the hordes and stuff like that. But then you have moments where you're like, that didn't work. That kind of fucking sucked. So, overall, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys thought about The Last of Us Season 2. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because it is a great show. It is a great season. I recommend, if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. And we'll see where Season 3 leaves us. But that's going to be it for this one, guys. If you guys like talking about movie, TV shows, or video game related, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.